Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, thanks for staying. Today we'll be discussing the 4B movement. What is it and is it impacting South Korea? Short answer, not really, but let's get into it. So what is the 4B movement? I would say, according to my research, it is a niche feminist movement that started up in 2018, and it sort of offers an alternate lifestyle to Korean women. Now, if you're not Korean or if you don't know this, culturally, Korean women are expected to get married by a certain age, have kids by a certain age, and when they do have kids, they take care of the majority of child rearing activities. And the men, it's a very patriarchal society, so naturally the men are, going to work and just hanging out, I guess. And this sounds all too familiar to me because I grew up in an African household, but luckily my dad is a star in that aspect. He definitely helps around the house, cleans, so my expectations for a husband are like through the roof. But having grown up around that, family, friends, fellow Congolese family, friends and family, it's very, very evident who was in the kitchen and who was waiting for the food in the living room. And within the 4B movement, there are 4 rules that the woman should adhere to. P in itself is from a Chinese character that means to not take a part of, if I'm not mistaken. So the 4 P's are as follows. The first one is Bihon, which is the refusal of heterosexual marriage, so not allowed to get married. The second P is Pichulsan, which is the refusal of childbirth. The third P is Pione, which is saying no to dating. And the fourth P is Bisexe, which means no sexual relations with members of the opposite sex. So with the 4B movement, I personally don't think that it's trying to directly attack the patriarchy that is very evident in Korean society and culture. It is more so being like, hey ladies, if you don't want to go through this is an alternative lifestyle and we have a name for it. That's what I gathered from my research. And so I don't think that it contributes greatly to the low birth rate or things like that. Although the word feminist in Korea is a big no-no from what I know and from my experience on observations of living there. I've lived in Korea for a year and a bit and I plan to go back. So this is also coming from a place of me living there and observing, how the culture is, etc. And when I was on dates or dating Korean men, I noticed that the word feminist was just no, and obviously those dates didn't work out because what do you mean I can't say or do certain things? Feminists in Korea, especially if you say to a Korean guy, not all, just some, not all, I'm not saying 100% this is all Korean men, but I've noticed that they kind of associate the word feminist with extreme man-hating feminist, shaved head. That's the image that doesn't take care of her beauty. That's the image they have of a feminist. So it's just not the same image that they have, basically. And also what I observed from living there is that patriarchy in South Korean culture is very evident in a lot of things, in what men can get away with, especially. For example, before going to Korea the first time, I obviously did my research. I was worried about the hidden camera fiasco because that's a legit worry to have when you live in South Korea as a woman. Hidden cameras, dating violence, domestic violence, femicides, and blackmail, to name a few. Those are quite common worries to have as a woman living there. Those were always kind of at the back of my mind as I went about my day-to-day life in Korea. I'm not saying I didn't interact with men or didn't, none of that. Like, I obviously, you saw my previous videos, I obviously went on a lot of dates. I was in a relationship at one point. So it's not like all of them are bad. No, none of that. But it's things that we definitely have in mind just going about our day-to-day life in Korea. There's another video on my channel where I go into detail about how I was followed home twice. That's a thing also to be, wary of. So all of this to say that the 4B movement is not far-fetched. It's kind of, I would say, a response to things that unfortunately are happening in South Korea in terms of relations and patriarchy and all of that juicy stuff. I think 4B is also a response to socioeconomic issues in Korean society as well, especially pertaining to the 4B rule of not having kids and not getting married. Those are a lot of things to consider when having kids, and I understand the infrastructure at the moment might not be ideal. So I think in that sense, it has more to do with socioeconomics as opposed to like, we hate men and we don't want to give you guys babies. Like, sure, there might be an element of that. I think it's more so like looking out for the well-being of women, and as I said before, just offering an alternate lifestyle where it's like, hey girl, you're working yourself to death, and I know you're at an age where you're supposed to get married and you're getting a lot of outside pressure from your family and friends, and you don't want to have a kid in this climate because everything is too expensive. The problem is people from the West, I find, because every TikTok and media, I guess, piece of media that I've seen surrounding 4B has been from people that are not Korean. What's that about? So that's very interesting to me. So I watched some of these videos, and I can insert some of them as well, and I thought, hold on, they're not getting the whole scope. And I didn't want to be all high and mighty because, I live there, so I know everything. No, I don't want that as well. But I just think that they completely missed the point in some of these videos. For instance, and I feel like Western feminists take the idea of 4B and then they bring it back into their own, feminist ideals, whatever. And they're like, well, see, the women in Korea are refusing to have kids, and it's super generalized and super blown out of proportion. And they're like, the women in Korea are rejecting dates, and they're not getting married, and they're not having babies. We should do the same in the West. We'll fix so many issues with our men here. And it's just like, oof, wait, like, hold on. Because to be honest, that is not the case. From what I've observed from living in Korea, if you ask the average Korean person what the 4B movement is, they will probably know a little bit of it, like vaguely, or they don't know anything about it at all. And as for dating, babes, couple culture is crazy in Korea. It's its own epidemic. There are couples everywhere. So best believe people are out here in relationships, in full-blown relationships, like no other. Like to the point where I wanted to date. just for fun. Like it's rampant to the point where like some certain activities, the couple slots, like the 2 people slots, are sold out before the group slots. Like, you don't understand how deep couple culture is. So for Western feminists to be like, no one's dating, no one's having babies, that's why the birth rate is so low, is kind of like, it's I don't think it's the right take to have. I don't know. It's kind of blown out of proportion, I think. Korean people are definitely dating, are definitely getting married. Some are having kids. The government of Korea is definitely aware that there's a low birth rate, and they try to incentivize having kids. Like, I read recently, I think in Busan, if Korean people, I'm not sure if foreigners are involved in this, but at least if a Korean couple decides to get married and have a kid, they get a stipend or something per month. So there are like, it's a gray area, right? Like there are incentives and they're trying to combat the issue. And yes, like a part of the issue is unfortunately the patriarchy. The part of the issue is men. Yeah, so I think honestly 4B has now gained massive popularity because a lot of eyes are on Korea already because of K-dramas, K-pop, etc. So now that they're hearing about like a darker aspect of Korea, for not 4B, meaning like, you know, the femicides, for example, the nth room scandals, the Burning Sun scandal, basically cases in where women are severely exploited and are in danger. They look at those things too and they're like, whoa, what's going on in Korea? And then they see 4B and they're like, whoa, the connection. And then, yeah, that's why they don't want to have babies, because the men are trash there. And it's just like, there are nuances in everything and it's not black and white. That's why I think the 4B movement isn't that popular or isn't that big in Korea. I think it gained its popularity due to outside influence, you know, Western feminists being like, this is the next move. So yeah, that's my take on the 4B movement. I think the low birth rate is a bunch of things. Again, also not black and white. Having a kid, raising a kid in Korea, I can't even imagine the costs. Not only is that child going to, you know, their regular school, they're also going to a hagwon, and hagwons cost money. And if you don't know what a hagwon is, it's basically like a private institute where there's additional learning, so additional English classes, whatever, what have you, math, whatever. So they go to school from, I don't know, let's say 8 to 2, and then they have hagwon from 3 to 10. Yes, there are kids roaming around at 10 p.m, tired, exhausted, still have to get home, do their homework, sleep, and do the whole thing again. And then you go from that to like trying to get into Seoul University or one of the Sky universities. So that's an additional amount of pressure. And then you graduate, hopefully with not too much debt, and then you work in a crazy environment and are expected to get married by a certain age and are expected to have kids, and then the down payment on the apartment you want to get with your partner is triple your school debt. Like, whoa, like it's a lot. So I feel like there's just a bunch of factors contributing to the low birth rate in South Korea, but I will never invalidate or negate the part men have in this as well, because, you know, if there is a partnership, if there is love and respect between each other, of course women would feel safe and be like, yeah, no, I do trust this man does help me, I do want to bring life into this world with this man. So I will never invalidate a woman's thoughts and opinions on this as well, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's what my opinion on 4B is. I think it's great. It offers an alternative. Feminism to me means choice, and if a woman has a choice in this world, I'm happy for her. All right, she has a choice to work, not to work, to have babies, to not have babies. She has a choice to further her education. She has choice. She has autonomy. She has authority within her space. Then I'm happy for her. So to conclude, I think that 4B is an excellent gateway into looking into the lives of some Korean women. I think it's a gateway into looking into feminist actions, initiatives, authors in South Korea. But unfortunately, I don't think it's like huge, you know, making huge waves, you know, to the point where like government is like, yes, like we need to do something about our, you know, femicide issues, our low birth rate. Like that's 4B is not that big yet. I don't know. That is my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.